I want you to picture two people. Same company, same department, hired the same year. The first earns $88,000 annually. They own a 3-bedroom house with a garage they can't park in because it's full. They pay $174 a month for a storage unit 2 miles away, filled with things they don't remember owning. Their closets don't close. Their weekends disappear into cleaning, organizing, and maintaining a life that somehow keeps expanding regardless of how much money flows into it. They have $4,300 in savings. They think about money every single day. The second earns $61,000 annually. They rent a 1-bedroom apartment. Walk inside and you'll notice immediately that there's space, surfaces that are clear, a closet where you can actually see what's in it, a kitchen with the tools that get used and nothing else. This person has $71,000 invested. They haven't thought about money with any real anxiety in 3 years. Same industry, same city, same decade of work. One of them is financially stable. The other is financially trapped. And the only meaningful difference between them is not the salary. It's the relationship each of them has with their possessions. Today, I'm going to walk you through the minimalist money rules that actually separate people who are always financially stable from people who are always one bad month away from a crisis. And I want to start with a concept that will permanently change the way you see every object you own.
Your possessions are not just things you bought. They are ongoing financial commitments you made without reading the contract. Every object you own comes with an invisible second price tag. The number on the receipt is just the entry fee. The real cost is what you pay to keep owning it. That second price tag includes physical space. Urban apartments cost anywhere from $2 to $4 per square foot per month in rent. A piece of gym equipment, a stored bicycle, a collection of boxes in a corner, these aren't sitting for free. They are occupying space you are paying for. Americans now spend over $44 billion a year on external self-storage units, a figure that has grown more than 13% in 4 years, because they have run out of paid-for space to store items they paid for. Think about that sentence for a moment. We are spending money to store things we already spent money on. The second price tag includes maintenance. Every possession degrades. It needs cleaning, repairing, replacing parts, insuring. The more you own, the larger this invisible, ongoing bill becomes. The second price tag includes mental energy. Research consistently links visual clutter to elevated cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone. Your possessions are not neutral. The items sitting unused in corners, the drawers that don't close, the closet that quietly stresses you every morning, they are exerting a measurable cognitive load on your brain continuously. You're paying an attention tax on everything you own, every day, whether you consciously notice it or not. And the second price tag includes opportunity cost, the most expensive of all. $1 spent on something that sits unused is $1 that will never compound into freedom. The difference between $10,000 invested at 28 and $10,000 spent at 28 is not $10,000. At 8% average annual returns over 35 years, it's the difference between nothing and $148,000. You are not buying objects. You are trading future financial independence for present accumulation. Once you see possessions this way, the rules that follow stop feeling like sacrifice. They start feeling like the most financially rational decisions available to you. Rule 1. Define the cost of ownership, not just the cost of purchase. Before any significant purchase, a financially stable person runs a specific calculation. They estimate the total annual cost of owning the item, storage space, maintenance, insurance, depreciation, attention, and they add that to the purchase price. Then they ask, is the value this item delivers worth both of those numbers combined? This single question eliminates most impulse purchases before they happen.
not because the purchase price feels high, but because the true ownership cost often does. A $1,200 piece of exercise equipment you use twice a week has a very different true cost than one you use twice a year. A piece of furniture that requires professional cleaning every 18 months has ongoing costs that never appeared in the showroom. A vehicle purchased primarily for status rather than utility carries psychological maintenance costs, the anxiety of keeping it pristine, the fear of a scratch, the social pressure to upgrade, that make its effective price far higher than its sticker price. Financially stable people are not people who buy cheap things. They are people who buy things that genuinely earn their total cost of ownership. They spend more on fewer things and get dramatically more value from every dollar spent. Rule 2. Stop tolerating possessions that are only still with you because of inertia. Here is how most possessions accumulate. Something is purchased with enthusiasm. The enthusiasm fades. The item stops being used. Removing it requires a decision, and decisions take energy, so it stays. It joins the growing collection of things you'd never buy today but haven't gotten around to removing. Every one of those items is costing you something: space, attention, the mental overhead of organizing around something you don't want, and collectively, they're the reasons so many people feel their homes are somehow never quite right, because their homes are filled with the residue of who they used to be rather than the tools of who they actually are. The rule financially stable people apply is brutally simple. For every object you own, ask one question: if this disappeared tonight, would I spend money to replace it? Not, could you imagine replacing it? Would you actually go buy another one? For most of what most people own, the honest answer is no, they would not replace it, which means it has zero value to them at current cost, which means it is a net loss. Every day it stays is a day it continues costing you space, attention, and money you could have captured by selling it. This is not about becoming a person who lives with nothing. It is about removing the things you already don't want, which most people have more of than they realize. Rule 3. Never upgrade something that works. There is an entire economy built around convincing you that working is not enough, that functioning isn't sufficient, that adequacy is somehow a problem requiring a purchase to solve. The phone that makes calls, connects to the internet, runs every app you need, and fits in your pocket does not require replacement because a newer phone now exists. The car that reliably transports you to every destination you need to reach does not need replacement because the new model has updated styling. The laptop that handles every task you give it does not need replacement because a faster processor was announced. The financially damaging pattern isn't one large, irresponsible purchase. It's the steady, nearly invisible accumulation of unnecessary upgrades across every category of life, year after year, compounding across decades. Financially stable people define functional clearly and defend that definition. An item stops being adequate when it genuinely cannot perform the task it's meant to perform, not when a better version exists, not when they've grown bored with it, not when a colleague has something newer, when it actually stops working. That distinction, applied consistently across a lifetime, is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Rule 4. Make the right financial behavior structurally easier than the wrong one. Most personal finance advice treats financial discipline as a character trait. You either have willpower or you don't. This framework is not only wrong, it is counterproductive because it causes people to blame themselves for failures that are actually environmental. Willpower is a finite daily resource. It depletes as the day progresses. It weakens under stress and exhaustion, which is precisely when the most consequential financial decisions tend to present themselves. A system that depends on willpower will fail regularly and predictably. Financially stable people don't rely on willpower. They build environments where the financially correct behavior is the automatic behavior. This means automatic transfers to savings and investment accounts on the day income arrives before discretionary spending is possible. It means removing stored payment information from retail websites so that purchasing requires active effort. It means unsubscribing from marketing emails so that sale notifications cannot manufacture urgency. It means keeping minimal balances in easily accessible accounts so that large impulse expenditures require deliberate action rather than a tap. None of this requires ongoing willpower. Each intervention is a decision made once that operates continuously. The environment does the work, and an environment engineered for good financial behavior produces good financial behavior regardless of mood, energy level, or how persuasive the sale notification would have been. Rule 5. Calculate what you're actually buying when you make discretionary purchases. Here is a reframe that financially stable people use so naturally they've often forgotten they learned it. Money is stored time. When you earn $50 an hour after tax and spend $500 on something, you didn't spend $500, you spent 10 hours of your life. The restaurant meal that costs $120 for 2 people cost approximately 2.5 hours of your working life. The impulse clothing purchase of $280 cost roughly 5.5 hours. This calculation doesn't mean never spending money. It means making the trade consciously with clear eyes rather than in the frictionless moment of a tap or a click. And the inverse applies equally. Every $50 you don't spend is $50 invested. At 8% annual returns, $50 per week invested for 30 years becomes approximately $326,000. That's not a savings lecture. That's arithmetic. The question every financially stable person has internalized is this purchase worth more to me right now than the future financial freedom that same money could buy? Sometimes the honest answer is yes, and that's a valid, intentional choice. The problem is most people are never actually asking the question. Rule 6. Decide what enough looks like before you start earning more. Here is the trap that catches high earners constantly. They never define enough. So as income rises, lifestyle rises to match it, and the margin between what they earn and what they spend stays identical or shrinks regardless of how much the income number grows. People earning $300,000 report financial stress at rates comparable to people earning $90,000 because their expectations and fixed costs have expanded in step with their income. Financially stable people make a different decision. They decide in advance what adequate looks like across every major spending category, not what they could afford if they stretched. What is genuinely sufficient for a comfortable, enjoyable life, and then they commit to that standard even as income grows. This decision is worth far more than it appears. A person who defines enough at $65,000 of annual spending and then builds income to $130,000 isn't just saving $65,000 a year. They're investing $65,000 annually into assets that compound. Over a decade, that decision builds a level of financial security and optionality that no amount of income without a defined enough could match. The alternative is an indefinitely moving goalpost. The next income level always brings the next upgrade in standard of living, which always creates the need for the next income level. It is a race with no finish line, and the people running it are exhausted and financially fragile at every stage. Rule 7. Measure financial stability by your options, not your objects. The conventional definition of financial success is visible: houses, cars, possessions, things other people can observe and confirm. This definition drives most consumer spending. People buy things in part to signal a financial status they want others to perceive. But financial stability, the actual thing, is not visible.
It lives in a set of options that most people never think to pursue. Can you leave a job that's making you miserable without immediate financial catastrophe? Can you handle a medical emergency without it destroying your monthly budget? Can you say no to a client or employer whose values conflict with yours? Can you take 3 months to handle a family situation without your finances collapsing? Can you weather a period of unemployment without panic? These options are only available to people who have built genuine margin between their income and their spending. And that margin is built not by earning more, though more income helps, but by deliberately preventing spending from assuming every dollar that comes in. The person with $71,000 invested on $61,000 income has those options. The person with $4,300 saved on $88,000 income does not. The difference between their situations is not a matter of luck or income. It is a matter of how many possessions they allowed to make claims on their money before those options could be built. Here's what ties all of these rules together. Financial stability is not a product of income. It is a product of margin. And margin is not created by earning more. It is created by ensuring that spending does not automatically expand to occupy every dollar that comes in. The possessions that fill the garage of the person earning $88,000 didn't just cost what they were purchased for. They cost the margin that could have become investments. They cost the financial options that could have been available. They cost, in some meaningful sense, the ease with which that person moves through life. The one-bedroom apartment of the person earning $61,000 is not a compromise. It is a choice to own fewer things, spend less maintaining and storing them, free up mental and financial resources, and build the kind of financial stability that an expanding lifestyle on a higher income never could. The minimalist money rules I've described aren't about living with less for its own sake. They're about recognizing that most of what gets purchased beyond a certain level of genuine comfort doesn't improve your life. It complicates it. And complicated lives require more money to maintain, which leaves less money available to build the thing that actually matters: financial stability, the kind that lets you make choices based on what you want, not what you can afford. That's available on almost any income. The only question is whether your possessions are working for you or whether you've quietly started working for them.